Well, joining us here in Doha is Mohamad Elmasry, professor at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. Mohamad, so we currently have this stalemate between the US and Iran. Now Trump is saying he's not happy with this latest offer from the Iranians. Why can't they seem to break this impasse? And what are the options now for both sides to move this situation forward?
Well, if we look back at the Iranian demands and the American demands, and you just juxtapose them, you can see that the two sides are quite far apart, and there's no evidence really that they've been able to bridge the gap. There are a number of very significant disagreements. So in some ways, it's not surprising that we're in this kind of holding pattern. I think part of the problem here is that the U.S. administration seems to believe that the Iranians are kind of on their last legs, that they're almost ready to surrender, that they are perhaps on the verge of an oil storage crisis. Trump keeps talking about how everything is just going to explode within a matter of days. My sense is that that's not accurate, that Iran could actually hold out for some time, and that they believe at least that they have time on their side. But if the U.S. believes that Iran is on its last legs, that perhaps can explain some of the U.S. positioning and posturing here.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because as Alan was saying in his report, there was this talk of this Iranian proposal for the US to end its blockade on Iran, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and the ceasefire becoming permanent. And then, and only then, talks on Iran's nuclear deal would follow. Could we still see that plan play out, do you think?
Well, it's still an open question. But, I think it's interesting that the U.S. Thinks that it is in a position of leverage here, that it can sort of dictate the terms. The reason why the Iranians are saying, okay, let's make this sort of patchwork agreement and then we'll hold off on the nuclear file is because I think they recognize that the nuclear negotiation is going to be very time-consuming and very complicated. Remember, the Iranians have a lot of experience in this arena, unlike the Trump administration, which is very inexperienced on the nuclear file. It's not something that can come together in just a few hours or even a few days. The JCPOA, the Iran nuclear agreement that was signed in 2015, took years to negotiate. So I think there's a recognition in Tehran that it's going to take time. And so they're saying, okay, let's at least get an agreement on the end of hostilities, and we'll figure something out in the Strait of Hormuz, and then we'll hold off on the other stuff.
Let's just stay with the nuclear file for a second, Mohammed, because Trump has made it clear, hasn't he, that Iran must accept this condition, no nuclear weapons, not now or in the future. But do the Iranians see the prospect of a nuclear deal as a major point of leverage in any talks with the US?
It's very difficult for me to wrap my head around the Trump position on the nuclear weapons issue, because Iran already signed up to a deal, the JCPOA, which I just referenced in 2015, that would have made it effectively impossible for them to get a nuclear weapon. They have a fatwa on the books, a religious edict on the books that forbids them from developing a nuclear weapon. There is no indication, not even from U.S. intelligence, that they were building a nuclear weapon or close to getting to a nuclear weapon. And all they've really asked for here is the right, which is their right under international law, to enrich uranium to peaceful civilian levels. They have all kinds of creative workarounds for the highly enriched uranium. They've proposed to dilute it, to offshore it. So it's very difficult for me to understand what Trump means when he says Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Mohammed, just a final thought to you. I mean, the US is now warning shipping companies against paying tolls to the Iranians to transit through the Strait of Hormuz. What do you make of this latest threat? And what actions could the US take to back up those warnings?
Well, it's an interesting proposal for sure, right? I mean, Iran believes that it has gained significant leverage with their kind of control over the Strait of Hormuz, which of course they didn't have 2 months ago, or just over 2 months ago. They want to turn that into a long-term strategic win. And so this move is an attempt by the Trump administration to kind of cancel that out. If they're able to do this, if they're able to scare countries from doing this, from paying the toll, then that could have a cost. It could have a cost on the Iranians, and it could kind of cause their plan for Hormuz to sort of blow up in their face a little bit.
All right, we have to leave it there. Mohamad Elmasry, Professor at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. Many thanks for your time as always, Mohamad. Thank you.